A teacher once told me, he made a mixing analogy, and it was basically compression and EQ to audio is like salt and pepper to cooking. It's used on everything. So those are kind of the two things that I could say always use is a compressor and an EQ. What I usually do, like on my signal chain, I usually EQ first, then compress. Maybe I'll EQ again because I might have lost some of those frequencies, some of those dynamics in the compression stage. So maybe I'll EQ again and bring those frequencies back in. And then I'll start adding everything else, a harmonic exciter, de-essing. Maybe I'm getting a lo-fi sound and I'll add that stuff in there. I might add a noise gate before that first EQ because if you're working with a noisy room and you want to cancel out that noise, or you got some really heavily distorted guitars that you want to get out that feedback, I'd use the noise gate there. There's many different ways that you could play around with this stuff, but usually it's just EQ, compression, and then I take it from there. In the digital world, click and drag and you can make your arrangement there if you want the compressor to be first or last or whatever. So like I said, there's many different ways that you could take this on, but again, EQ and compression, it's on everything like salt and pepper. When you EQ, I guess you could say my rule is to cut frequencies out with the EQ instead of boosting. Usually boosting can bring up unwanted noise, so you gotta make sure you're very cautious of those things as well. Use subtractive EQ to give all those tracks, those sounds, their own space by cutting any unused or not necessarily needed frequencies within that sound or track. So for instance, if you got a bass, you're not really going to get too much high end out of that bass, so you want to cut out the high end. 30 hertz and below, you're not really going to hear it, so I usually cut those out. Same thing goes for a kick drum. You're not going to really hear any high frequencies, so you want to cut those out so you don't even have to worry about those. The same thing goes for a vocal. You're not really going to hear 100 hertz on a vocal, so you want to take those out so this way the kick drum and the bass can live in that area. With the subtractive EQ, you want to be able to take out clashing frequencies in certain tracks. If you have a piano and a guitar together, you might want to cut out some of the high end on the guitar and let the piano shine on that high end, or vice versa. Some sounds, will only live in certain frequency ranges, so you should cut out, like I said, those unwanted frequencies. To help you with compression is just make sure you understand how a compressor works and how compression works. That will help you make those judgments on when to use the compression and how to use that compression. So there's an article we put in the description on compression. That's a good read, for understanding it. It was written by Barry Rudolph. He did it with Mix Magazine. It's a little article. It's pretty good. And also the Air Users blog, they did an article on compression. I think you guys should check out. It'll really give you some insight on that. Don't always solo your tracks when you're mixing, because it'll sound great when it's solo, but then when you bring it back in the track, it could sound horrible, lost, all that kind of stuff. So continuously, mix, and you can solo and mix, but then, continuously checking back with the whole track to make sure everything's, meshing together and sounding right. Remember to keep checking those gain stages when you are mixing, because you can have a whole bunch of plugins going on and everything sounds great, but your EQ is clipping, and you may not see that right away. So make sure you check all those gain stages to make sure there's no clipping, no distortion, all that kind of stuff. I would love to hear some techniques or tips that you guys do for mixing, or maybe it helps you get into the mixing frame of mind. Let us know with a video response or a comment below the video. Remember to follow WinkSound on Facebook and Twitter. Keep up to date with the latest releases from WinkSound Studios. I hope to hear from you guys soon. Peace.